Timothy Kirkhope, there's been a lot of talk about PNR, passenger name records, and as the European Parliament's lead member on this, as the rapporteur, could you just start by explaining to us what exactly is PNR?
Well, it is passenger name records that are obtained by airlines when the public travels by air, basically. It's information, basic information. Not detailed information or complex information, but just a few details like the name of the person traveling, the itinerary of the person, that is where they are traveling to and from, information about their passport, information which is, normally taken anyway by airlines, but in this case it is a list of things of that type, a very simple list of information about them.
And so what practical applications does collecting that and storing that information have in the fight against terror and serious crime?
Well, formalizing the collection of that data and having that data available to the authorities if necessary, that's the police authorities and so on, is very important because it assists them in the knowledge of where people are going, the sort of routes they are taking. And the relevance of that is that which major criminals, and we're talking here not just about terrorists or those who are intent on terrorist activity, we're talking about major criminals in areas like drugs, we're talking about people who have been trafficking other people or children, we're talking about those involved in major criminality of all kinds, where having such information available to the authorities in a safeguarded way, a limited way, means that they, working together, can actually detect movements of criminals and piece that together into, quite often, a very compelling case against someone very dangerous who needs to be detained.
And some member states will already have some sort of system in place to collect PNR information. Why do we need action at the European Union level and not member state level?
Well, partly because of this. Some nation states do. I mean, Britain and France are two examples where PNR systems are up and running or ready to run. But there are 16 countries so far out of 28 that have been offered finance by the European Commission to set up PNR systems. At the moment, there is no common set of standards or indeed a common set of safeguards for the gathering of that information between the member states in the EU. And bearing in mind that we're talking about travel right across Europe and into Europe and out of Europe, which is a very fast-moving situation with a lot of countries involved, we do need to have some sort of consistency in, firstly, the information that is gathered, and also the safeguards in place for how that information is used or exchanged in the cooperative effort between the police authorities in detecting criminals.
And so people watching this who may have some concerns about their data being collected or how it may be used, what reassurances can you give them that it will be stored correctly and used appropriately?
First, I want to emphasize that the amount of information we're talking about is much less than the information which most people provide when they open some kind of club card account with a local supermarket. It's not as if we're asking a lot of intrusive information. But obviously we need to have safeguards for this information as to how it is actually used and exchanged. And very much a part of what I'm doing in this PNR report is to try and make sure that those safeguards are sufficient to satisfy those who have concerns about the use of data. There will be a limit on the amount of time that the data can be retained. There will be a limit on how it can be exchanged and between which authorities it can be exchanged. And obviously there is that limit in the first place on how much information is obtained in the process from the airlines.
And so as the Parliament's rapporteur on the project, on the file, how much chance do you think we have now of getting this through the European Parliament and actually into law? I'm
very optimistic indeed. Obviously recent events have highlighted the issue, but I would like to make it perfectly clear that this is a file that I have now had for nearly 3 years, that it does relate not just to terrorist atrocities, which we've seen recently in France. It relates to a much wider area of criminality and will be good in terms of being able to detect criminals. So I am very optimistic now. There is a mood, undoubtedly a mood here now of a positive approach towards this. It is important, and we can demonstrate that the use of PNR by those countries that already have it, albeit without the sort of safeguards that we would like to put in place, But that has already been responsible for the detection of a lot of criminal activity. A lot of would-be terrorists have been deterred or have been detained. A lot of people who've been involved with the drugs trade, for instance, have been identified. There are actual successes here, and obviously we live in a dangerous world. Europe is part of the dangerous world. We need, therefore, to make sure that our citizens are as safe as possible, and I owe it to them, we all owe it to them, to give them security and safety.